back to my channel. So today, as you can see from the title, I am doing a comparison video that is long awaited and long requested. And I'm really glad I took the time to actually really try out these two scents and compare Ariana Grande's Cloud and Cloud Intense. Several times I gave it a full run through and we're just gonna get into it. I think this is gonna be a short video. I cringe even saying that because it probably won't be, but I think it'll be a shorter video because once I get going with the analysis, you'll see. But I'm really glad I took my time because I feel like I sort of slightly disagree with at least the comparisons I read on Fragrantica. So I wanted to get my comparison out there just in case you were still trying to decide between the two, if you hadn't had a chance to smell the Intense version, and if you're just kind of curious about what their differences or similarities are. So without any further ado, if you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. All that good stuff and more is in the description box below, and let's get into it. So I have pretty good experience and many wears of the original Ariana Grande's Cloud. I have the Intense version through Royalty Scents. I do videos on my Royalty Scents every month or so. I love getting to try fragrances I wouldn't normally have access to through them. And when I got Ariana Grande's Cloud, it was right when it was released in the States, so I couldn't find it at all. And so I was really happy to get to try it. And I have worn both many times. Obviously, I've worn Ariana Grande's original Cloud much more. And just because I always get asked, and I only sometimes remember, I've got the regular Cloud or the original Cloud in the 50 ml. And obviously these are, I think they're 8 mils or something. Yeah, they're the 8 ml decants. So like I said, I did many wear tests, but one of the tests I did was a full, by this point, it will be 48-hour test on test strips. And I wrote on them as well because I've had, like I said, so many wear tests of Cloud, and I know how potent it can be, how long lasting it is, especially on clothing or, you know, things that aren't your skin, which you'll probably wash every day or more than that. And, you know, you sweat and you might wear, you know, makeup on your neck. And so there's so many factors that come into skin. But I wanted to do it on a piece of paper so that I could have, at this point, 48 hours of wear test, and I will smell them right now fresh on my skin as well. That has no scents whatsoever on there, so we can get a really in-depth view of what it smells like right at the opening, and then obviously after 2 days of wear as well. Okay, so right before we get to actually spraying both scents, I wanted to share the note difference because when I really got into smelling them, I was getting a whole lot of similarity, and we'll obviously get into that. So I wanted to see what actually is the difference in the note breakdown released. And the original Cloud has lavender, pear, bergamot, whipped cream, praline, coconut, vanilla, orchid, musk, and woody notes. And the newly released Intense version has everything I just mentioned, but with 2 added notes, which are ambroxan and cashmeran. So from that, obviously if you're at all kind of familiar with both of those scents, especially ambroxan, some people are nose blind to it. Some people can smell it a whole lot. And cashmeran, while beautiful, is not the most make it or break it like different scent or note, I should say, that's really gonna completely alter a fragrance. So that was a really good thing to know when I was doing tests of these fragrances, but still the reviews that I was seeing on Fragrantica, I think, didn't prepare me for truly how similar these two scents are. So we will go ahead and I'm gonna spray the original Cloud on this hand, 2 sprays, and then I will spray 2 sprays of Cloud Intense on this hand. And I'm gonna give it a little bit of a beat, whoops, to kind of refresh my memory. Okay, that's Cloud, and that's Cloud Intense. So my first ever kind of comparison when I was doing that on my skin, side by side, I was struck immediately by the fact that these are identical. To my nose, again, everything that I'm gonna say is really to my experience. I'll smell this and I'll be like, okay, that's Cloud. And I'll smell this and I'll be like, okay, that smells like Cloud to me. So immediately I was like, oh, maybe the difference really isn't in terms of a scent difference. This is just the intense version of that fragrance, and it's supposed to last longer and just be a stronger version, which would make total sense. Obviously the bottle changed in terms of coloring, and I just heard that the scent was supposedly different, but after I smelled them, I was like, wow, these are identical, like truly, truly identical to my nose. Then, and I'm gonna have to give it a sec to kind of rest on my skin, but I really started to take a look at obviously the note difference and people's reviews, and I took into consideration that I believe there are definitely fragrances in my collection where I think I'm nose blind to ambroxan. If I'm remembering correctly, it's been even in fragrances on this channel that I've talked about where I'm like, oh, I can't smell anything. So I just don't really know if maybe that's making a more prominent difference for folks, or maybe they're not doing side-by-side comparisons and they're just recalling off of memory, which isn't obviously as thorough or precise. Because when I first hauled this, I felt like, wow, it smells similar, but maybe it's a little sweeter, maybe it's a little this. And it really wasn't until I compared them side by side that I saw, or I smelled, I should say, how identical they were in the opening, truly to my nose, completely the same. Then, as it rested a little bit more on the skin, the only, and I mean truly the only difference I could pick out was that there is a kind of ever so slight, and I really mean ever so slight, sharpness in Cloud, in the original Cloud, that isn't there for Intense. It's, if I could just like tell you what I imagine it is, it would probably be somewhere along the lines of like the lavender or pear. Like there was a sharpness, probably lavender, that is right there at the start, but it takes a second. It takes a real second for it to kind of dry on your skin and sort of warm up. That isn't there in the Intense, and the Intense kind of straight off from the beginning smells like Cloud after Cloud's already been on the skin for a while, maybe like 15-ish minutes, depending on your skin chemistry and nose and all that. But that is me truly kind of nitpicking at trying to see a legitimate difference. Because of that, and maybe like the slight sharpness, maybe that's what people are interpreting the Intense to be more sweet. But personally to me, I just wanted to get a review out there that kind of acknowledged truly how identical these are, and how I wouldn't necessarily say that Cloud Intense is a sweeter and creamier or super different flanker to the original. And if anything, I think is lacking that sort of slightly more interesting, sharp, and I say sharp very lightly, but sharp opening that the original has. So that was really the most distinct difference I could pick out from the two. So that was really the main wear test of the opening. And as I was wearing them kind of on like one limb compared to the other than that difference, I felt like over the first maybe 6 to 8 hours, I started noticing a little bit of a difference on how it was wearing on my skin and my clothing overall. And so I'm really glad that I did this test as well, because obviously then I showered and I lost the scent that first day, but this kind of helped me compare and contrast and see if what I was smelling during that first day really did play out, you know, in the next 48 hours. And again, this was just my experience, but I did it a couple times, and time again, the original Cloud was outperforming both in terms of kind of sillage and also lasting power to Cloud Intense. So originally I was like, okay, well, maybe the scent just isn't that different, and maybe I'm nose blind to the cashmere and Ambroxan, or maybe there really isn't that much of a difference and people are sort of imagining it. But this is just a more intense version of this, which is great because this is already so strong. Like, this will last you days and days and days. And this is by no means, the intense version is by no means a lighter version at all. I think they're both very strong, especially for a celebrity fragrance, and do very much last a full work day and beyond. But as I started to have them on my skin, I think I just started to notice that there was a slight edge to the original Cloud. And now, smelling these sheets, I can say both of them still smell like their respective fragrances, which is incredible after 48 days, like quite prominently as well. But there is a sharpness and there is a little bit more of a strength to the original Cloud compared to Cloud Intense. And again, that could just be me, but I wanted to try them on paper as well, so that it wasn't just my skin chemistry and it was, you know, my nose being put to the test. So personally, if I had to do it all over again and I were to finish both of these, I don't see any need or distinct reason to go out of my way to get the flanker of Cloud Intense. It isn't different enough in scent for me at all to justify having both. To my nose and on my skin, they are 99.99% identical, and therefore really is unnecessary. And so if I had to repurchase at a certain point, I would just get the original. It has the slight edge on performance, like I said, and I like the bottle more. In fact, I think the coloring is a lot more to my taste. So personally, I wanted to get that review out there. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've tried both, how you find it. I'm curious and really anticipating to see if there were different experiences than I had. Unfortunately for me, they just were so identical, and this one, you know, a little more subpar on performance, that this is a flanker that just is not really piquing my interest anymore. But I'd love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.